Hey everyone, I'm super excited for today. We have an awesome live stream. We do not just have 1, 2, but 3, but 4, actually maybe 5, including me, 5 stars to bring on stage who are excited to help you become the next GitHub Star. So let's bring Gina up. And Gina, thank you so much for being here.
Hi, my name is Gina Heuske. I am the creator and maintainer of a project called Octoprint, which is the snappy web interface for your 3D printer, and which is basically like a web interface / remote control thing for consumer 3D printers, which I've been maintaining since late 2012, full-time since 2014, and full-time and 100% crowdfunded by my user base since 2016. I work on it full-time. I work on it every day. It's pretty amazing. I never expected this to ever become like my full-time job or anything. It was just a pet project, but here I am.
So next up, we have Mario. How are you doing?
Hi, Eddie. I'm fine. It's a pleasure to be here with you. I am a software engineer. I work at Nubank in Brazil. I have a great love in teach people and to work with education and to make things easier to people who learn tech-related stuff. And I worked for 3 years in a programming school here at Brazil. Before I worked in a publicity agency. In my free time, I try to take a rest because it's important and to take care of the community that I'm building with my YouTube channel. And I try to support some open source projects when I'm able to, opening issues, giving code contributions.
Debbie, how are you doing?
I'm doing great, thank you. So yeah, my name is Debbie and I'm based in Palma. I came from the world where I worked in a company that if I put a blog post online, they basically told me to take it down because you're not allowed to share information. And how dare you write something on company time and post it to the world. That's where I came from, and I didn't like that. And I just kind of thought, I learned from so many people who've written blog posts, who've done YouTube videos, who've done all these things. And why should I not be able to share my knowledge? So I am so grateful for the fact that I have been able to find an amazing job. And I previously, in my previous company, which was Nuxt, and Nuxt is open source. And now I'm working for BitDev as a developer advocate. My role is to help build the community, the open source community, move things from Slack into GitHub discussions, get people more involved, get more people using it. I really feel that I can help developers learn how to code using Bit by making their lives easier so they can get websites up and running out the door fast and easy. And, it's not going to cost them anything. And I think that's just like using open source. So yeah, I'm just really happy to be able to build and work in open source and obviously be a GitHub Star is just like so cool.
Let's do the intro to Ruth. It's awesome to have you here.
I'm Ruth. I work with animals as a technical content manager. So basically what I do is I write like technical content, but then I'm also super fan of open source. I also, do public speaking, speak at events, on how to get people involved in tech.
So let's dig a bit deeper, right? Maybe we go back around in the same order, but I'm really keen if people could give more of how you got to where you are.
I'll go first, but it's really long. So how I got to where I am today, well, it was by chance in a way, good enough to be. I didn't think I was good enough to go to university. So I went to do a secretarial course and it was very boring. So while I was in the secretarial course, I saw someone doing graphic design and web design. And I kind of jumped in there and I was like, this looks cooler. Why can't I do something like this? So I did. And I got a job straight away. But this is back in like 1990 something. So we're back in the day when Amazon was just a blue screen with a load of text on it. I got bored and I moved to Spain to be an entertainer on a stage because that was much more fun, I left the kind of web industry a little bit behind. But then I tried to get back into it and I went into Flash sites because that was the cool thing back then. I moved on to WordPress websites because that was kind of cool. And I had moved to Mallorca. I'd settled in Mallorca, so I'm in a very small island. There wasn't the big companies around. So it was very, very difficult. And I did get a couple of jobs in some small startups. And they kept on running out of money. So I kept on having to look for another way of earning money. So I became an English teacher. So I was constantly working like 80-hour weeks and just like constantly in and out of jobs. And I decided I need to change my career because really I wasn't happy being an English teacher. I wasn't making a lot of money. I decided I'd go back to full-time studying. So I went back to try and learn JavaScript because that's what I was missing. I had great HTML skills, great CSS skills, but I couldn't do any JavaScript. And just studied the whole time and just tried my best to try and get a job. It was a very long road. But after 9 months of full-time studying, I finally got hired And I basically got a job, and that's the end of the long story. And then there's another story to get to where I am today. How did I get there? How on earth? I was like 4 years ago, I couldn't write a single line of JavaScript, and now I'm here. So it's incredible.
Wow, you got so many great comments. I mean, bringing up on the screen as well. I mean, you get loads of support and people saying, wow, it's hard work. And it isn't easy. I think anything that's worthwhile isn't easy. And I think, but you were consistent and you persevered. And I think that's really important. I'd love to just keep going around and hearing people's stories. And then we're going to get into some of the questions from the audience already.
The question is, how far back do you want me to go? Because this whole journey started for me like 30 years ago or more than that. So, and I was like 6 or 7, because back then my parents got the first computer. Little me wanted to play games, and my dad was like, no, this is not a toy. This is a working machine, but I can show you something. And then he showed me the very first lines of BASIC, and I could not speak a single word of English yet. And BASIC is like pretty much every programming language is English. So I just had to memorize all of that without it making any sense at all. So I was instantly hooked. And as soon as I learned that being a software engineer is like a career, is something that you can actually become. And I tailored my whole life towards that, like getting into the computer science course at school, which meant becoming very good at math, then getting into a good university to study computer science, finishing that. And then initially I wanted to actually do a PhD as well. But once I learned that this involves way more writing stuff than writing code, I figured out, that's maybe not what I want to do. And so I became a corporate drone in a software solution company thingy. And that went on for some years. And they constantly tried to promote me away from the code. And like, this was actually what I love about my job. I love playing with code. I love creating stuff. I love writing code. I love also like debugging things, like this is all like a puzzle game for me. So I started doing more coding on the side. And at some point then I got myself a 3D printer and wanted something to control it. Because I didn't want it to sit here next to me in my office the whole time it was working, but I wanted to just be able to shove it into a spare room and then monitor it from remote and just look on my phone. And nothing for that existed yet in a way that I wanted it. So I just sat down and wrote it and threw it on GitHub and figured, hey, it's working. It's doing now what I want it to be. That was fun. Back to my job. And then suddenly people were writing to me from all over the world, like, hey, I had the same problem. It's awesome that you solved it. And can you make it also do that? Suddenly, it just became this whole full-fledged open source project that I had never envisioned. And I reduced my job to 80% so that I had 1 day per week to concentrate just on this. But this also wasn't enough. And at some point, I was approached by a company that was also doing 3D printers, and they were like, we'll employ you so you can do this full time, but you will still control everything. And that was like the absolutely luckiest catch ever. The company after 2 years couldn't afford this whole 3D printing and open source funding stuff anymore. So that was when I had to do the crowdfunding because I figured, so back then it was either I go back into my old job or a similar job or and drop the project, because at this point it was way too big to do it on the side.
One thing that I have to say is that open source always was around my life and things that I was doing. I believe that good people always need to have opportunities, because if you do opportunities to good people, things amazing will be created. And well, I started my journey in development playing Tibia. Have any one of you played Tibia? The Cipsoft game, very terrible graphics. Well, I played Tibia since I was 80 years old, but I didn't have a computer in my home, and I didn't have access to much money. So every money that my mother gives to me or my father, I used to go to houses that have computer that in Brazil they were very popular, and I played Tibia there multiple times. And when I was 10 years old, when I get the computer in my house, people from my family think that I would be so addicted to Tibia because I was always playing it. But I was not just interested in play the games. I was interested in how they work, how to create my own version. And then I discovered that there's an entire community that's called Open Tibia Server. But the Open Tibia community tried to create multiple mods and create the own version of Tibia. I know that in that time, I create multiple servers and I try to build variations on top of it. I learned English in that process. So, I mean, like, I understand that if I write this, then the computer does that. I was, oh my God, this is awesome. In that time, I was finishing everything. I got my first job. And then I discovered the tech events. And I didn't know that there's a so huge community around events. And for me, it was like amazing. In one day, with 7 talks, I was able to learn more things that I learned in the past 6 months. I want to be the person that share how we are doing things in the company and how amazing things can be. I always try to be part of events, contribute with open source and everything like that.
I have to make a note before we get into it. I have to make a note. It's going to say, when I do a live stream with Mario, Eddie talks too much, Mario talks too much. So we need not 2 hours. We need like an 8-hour live stream. I'm just, making a note on a bit of paper. Okay, last but not least, we have Ruth from Nigeria. Yes, let's hear your story because everyone's story is so different. And I think people can relate to different stories, which I think is super exciting. So Ruth, please go ahead.
Sure. So I really loved Mario's story, and something I took off from it was, when you give opportunities to good people, they like shine. So I started, my tech career. That was last year, March. After finishing my degree, my microbiology degree in school, 2019. I have this friend that, shout out to Peace or German, she's a designer. So she was, doing a lot of tech stuff then while we were back in school. I got interested. And then she was like, okay, learn this by yourself. I was like, okay, well, how do I start? And then I said, let's give it till next year. That's 2020. Then 2020 came and there was the COVID, the pandemic came up. And I'm stuck at home. I can't go outside. So I had to pick what to learn. So I learned that Python is very applicable with biological sciences. The syntax is quite friendly. I got my dad's computer and, started learning from home. And then I attended a tech talk. So there's the speaker that's one of the speakers, Ada. So she talked about sharing her journey, and she was also, a microbiologist. So I could really relate. And then I took out a lot of points, which was like sharing my knowledge in public and, putting myself out there. I started doing 100 days of code. Every day I would share what I did with Python that day. I was really so excited and people would comment. I knew I would screenshot or take a picture of my code.
Awesome. So we've got some questions in the chat. So this is a question to all of us. Did people's opinion or thoughts about you change when you became a GitHub Star? Feel free to jump in. I'm not going to call on people.
Like my last job, like the first thing that they did when they tried to contact me to employ me was congratulations on becoming a GitHub Star, and then started. So they'd obviously seen that I had become one and investigated what I've done. And 100%, I think people kind of see that you're kind of out there, that what you're doing with community work. And I don't know, I think it's just, it definitely gives you a platform to kind of like be seen, which is important.
That's also actually what I was going to say, because I do not really feel like it changed people's opinion of me, but it just made me way more visible, because before that I was in this 3D printing niche and almost no one knew me or had ever heard about me. And I would not say that I now get strangers on the street going, oh, Gina, hi. But at least I have now gotten my feet into more areas. I dare to do more stuff now. I dare to put myself out as a consequences now as well, because I noticed, okay, so maybe I can just try to give this talk and try to give that talk and try to apply to this conference. And so that has been pretty amazing, I gotta say.
This is strange because in Brazil, the GitHub Stars was more popular with the front-end community. One thing that was really awesome is that now I have much more contact with people of other countries than Brazil. So, and like, for example, I didn't know that was a huge open source project related to 3D printing before I meet Gina inside the GitHub Stars. and it's very easy to have access to people from different countries and have different opinions, and people support you if you post a video, if you post a live stream.
Awesome. Yeah, so true. The GitHub Slack is really great where we all can geek out on and with the GitHub engineers and GitHub team. A question from Ison. How do you stay motivated for day-to-day work and programming? This is a really good question.
That is actually, it's like mental health and preventing burnout and stuff. This is like a huge theme for me because I struggled a lot with that, especially in the beginning with Octoprint when it was just a side project as well, and trying to balance that with my daily work life as well, and also of course my private life. And then at some point it became a full-time job, and then things actually at first got worse because it was really difficult to shut off after a day and just leave work at work and have regular private life. And I think the key for me, at least, to stay motivated is to really draw really strong boundaries between my work and my private life. So, for example, after this year is finished, it will be my weekend and I will not touch anything Octoprint related or even GitHub related or otherwise work related until Monday. And this is crucial because otherwise you just constantly keep mulling over stuff. You constantly check mails. You constantly look at notifications. The most important thing really is that you need to listen to yourself. You need to notice when you are no longer being motivated, but the things that you actually love to do usually. And these are warning signs that you have to recognize and then make sure that you do recognize your boundaries, to enforce your boundaries, also defend them against others, and that you bring the fun back in. Also, sometimes by just doing something else for a while. If I have been fixing a bug for 2 weeks and I'm getting frustrated, then I will do a little tiny mini feature or a supporting tool or something like that, just so that I can get a change of scenery and don't die.
It's true. Sometimes you just need to step away, either do something like fun and exciting or something completely different. I mean, such great advice. And yeah, in the EddieHub community, we've got like a wellness channel. We are trying to focus on the whole work-life balance as well, because yeah, sometimes we can get like our blinkers on and then just focus on what's right in front of us and not realize one day goes past, 2 days, a week, a month, and we haven't really kind of done anything else or any exercise or anything just different. So
I have to tell that I can agree more with Gina and you. Be conscious about your mental health and have clear separation. So this is time for work, this is time for my hobbies, and this is time for other stuff. The other one is that is to do side projects. I really love side projects, but I try to not be compromised with them. Using programming for the things that will make me happier.
I think one thing that's very important as well is to make sure you don't feel guilty for taking the time off. And that's something I felt a lot because I've been working every weekend during the pandemic because, you know, there was no life, right? So my life became my work, open source, everything. I just worked nonstop. And I was happy. My people, the only people I seen were, you know, when I'm on my YouTube live streams and things like that. And then like life has become a little bit more normal now. And I've started to like do more sport and go out a little bit and like take some time off. Like I'm not actually opening the computer at the weekend. And that's the first time I've done that in so long. And you do feel guilty. You do feel like I'm not there enough for people anymore. And I should be back on the computer and I should be this. So it's important to not feel guilty for looking after yourself.
what about yourself, Ruth? What do you do to make sure you don't burn out? And
I'm still trying to figure that out, honestly.
I love the honesty. That's fine. I mean, I love the honesty.
Then with a new job and still trying to balance off things, I'm still trying to figure that out.
So I'm going to jump to Vincent's question because Vincent's in the Far East in the Philippines. I know it's going to be quite late for there. And what piece of advice would you give to an aspiring GitHub star? I love this question.
I would say that it's really about putting other people before yourself and trying to help other people as much as you can. So just get out there and be yourself. Do not try and be anyone else, and just try and help people by just sharing the knowledge you have, because you do have knowledge and your knowledge is worth sharing.
Yeah, something else I would love to add to Debbie's point is, creating a niche for yourself Public learning too is really, really helpful. There are so many opportunities flying here and there on Twitter.
I love that. I think that's great, right? Public sharing what you do. Like you said, you were sharing as you were learning, as you were going along. And someone who's only maybe 1 month into a career to someone who's where they were a month ago. And so, I think we can always help someone who is, just, a few steps behind on their journey.
I would also like to maybe add a bit on top of Debbie's approach. I would say that you do not want to target, or you do not want to focus on becoming a GitHub star. You should be doing these things because you are intrinsically motivated to do them. You should want to help people in order to help people, and you should work on open source in order to work on open source, and not in order to become more interesting for future potential employees, or in order to one day be a GitHub star.
I'll just hold an invisible one for now.
But I'm not doing all of this to get this. It's absolutely amazing to get this kind of recognition, and it feels, I cannot even put it into words how it feels after all these years of working on open source and all that. But I'm not doing it for that.
I totally understand, and I totally agree with all the points that you all bring. So everyone here have their own contributions and their own motivations to do the things that we do, and GitHub sees something on it.
Yeah, collaboration, kind of support, community first, I think. And, I do get people asking me some strange questions sometimes, like I get DMs saying, what do I need to do to become a GitHub star? Or I think they're kind of, maybe asking the wrong question. It's more kind of, how can I help people? And I would say contribute to open source, collaborate with people. And I say contribute to open source. I don't say contribute code, because it doesn't have to be code. But that's the best advice I can give, but it's not what people want to hear. I think they want to hear, I want a checklist of 3 things. I must create the biggest PR to the busiest, fanciest project, Kubernetes or React or something. And then I need to do a talk at some event, and then I'm a GitHub star. And I don't think it kind of works like that. It's actually awesome to have you here. So how do you think becoming a GitHub star has helped you contribute more towards the community?
For me, it was, it gave me the confidence to actually kind of believe in myself more. And it also meant that, because remember, GitHub stars are nominated by people. So someone out there thinks I'm doing a good job. So that means my work is meaningful to people and not just one person, right? You might get there and you might not, and that's not even important, but you're helping people. And I think just becoming one just made me feel like, yes, this is worthwhile. Keep contributing and keep doing it and keep sharing knowledge, because it's useful to people.
I think when I share something, I get some feedback. Some people might say, hey, have you thought about doing it this way? Or the way by me trying to document it, rather, I prefer to use the word document rather than create content, but document it and to share it. It makes me think of it very differently. And therefore I think, I didn't think about that. Or I can't explain that very well. I kind of do it, but I don't know why I do it. Let me go research a bit more. And I find I learn it a lot better.
For me, it was interesting in that, so I mentioned this niche that I was in earlier, and becoming a GitHub star actually allowed me to somehow step out of this niche. When you become a GitHub star, they also said, or are nominated to become a GitHub star, they send you a link where you get a form where you have to fill out an application, and there you also have to describe what you hope to achieve by becoming a GitHub star, basically. And I remember I put in there that I was hoping that me becoming more visible as a woman, as a female maintainer in open source, would allow more girls, actually, primarily, but also just young women, to see, hey, this is actually an option. And there are people there who, like me, who do this full time and who can do that. And I've actually gotten mails and DMs and such that told me that I am a role model for girls. And that is amazing, because this is something that I wish I had back then.
I think that's great. I think it's just so much positive energy from everyone's stories and everyone's goals. Next question, trying to keep track of all the questions, and think, Mario would take back his comment about Eddie being a great host, because I'm dropping the ball a bit now, but let's see how it goes.
No.
So what's next for you after becoming a GitHub star? Ashwin, thank you so much for the question.
Give a TED talk.
Oh, wow. Okay, nice.
That's
I would honestly just love to meet the other GitHub stars in the real world, because we only know each other through some Zoom calls and such, and that would really be the next big thing for me.
Yeah, please, GitHub, take us to San Francisco.
I really want to board a plane right now, but once this is all over, I would really love if it would be possible to somehow do a get-together someplace on the earth.
What kind of final remarks, closing remarks would you like to give to people, I suppose? If seeing some of the questions we've had, anything you'd like to share that we haven't covered yet?
I will answer one of the questions. Someone put something in the channel mentioned about where to start in open source.
Okay.
So it's really important to know that don't go looking for something just to do. Try and do something that you like doing. I started just by contributing to the Webpack documentation, and that sounds very hardcore, but I actually did something very, very simple. And then from there, it gave me confidence to kind of say, wow, I didn't break everyone's website. I didn't break Webpack. It's all good. I can keep doing this, right? So what do you like doing? And try and contribute to that. Documentation is always a great start. And just go ahead and do it. Don't hesitate, just make that effort, but don't just contribute just for contributing. Contribute because you want to, not because you're going to get brownie points, right? Contribute because you actually want to contribute and enjoy it.
I totally I agree with you. As you mentioned, contribution is not like create a new feature. If everyone create a new issue when they reach to a problem or try to seek if there's another issue, every project will be much greater because people will be aware of things that must be solved.
Definitely need context. I think in the EddieHub community that I love that everyone does. I get so many GitHub notifications, but a lot of them, like probably 80% of them have been dealt with already. I see people going through the history and putting a comment in. They might not be able to close the issue because they're not the author, they're not a maintainer on the project, but they put a comment in saying this is a duplicate of this issue. And that adds so much value to me and the community.
Everything helps. It's not just implementing a new feature or even fixing a bug in a PR. It's just chiming in on an issue. Hey, I can't reproduce this bug. It's not just writing code. It's not even just writing documentation. Everything that helps a maintainer having to do less other stuff is already helping a ton.
I'm going to jump into this question from Karuna because I have really strong opinions on this. I'm going to go last. Did you have a mentor in your journey to becoming a GitHub Star? If yes, how and who motivated you to stay on track?
I don't think you can say you have a mentor for your journey to becoming a GitHub Star if you think that we were on a journey knowing that we were going to be a GitHub Star, because we weren't. We were unaware that this was going to happen. We didn't try and apply for something. But did I have mentors in my journey to doing what I did to end up becoming a GitHub Star, which is a little bit of a different question? I had mentors and people I looked up to. So I looked up to certain people. Sarah Drossner, for example, from the Vue Core team is one of my, she's a mentor. She doesn't know she's my mentor because, I never told her. So I look at what she's doing and how she's helping the community, and I try and aspire by her and think, if she can do this, then maybe I can too.
I agree and disagree with Debbie. I agree, but I want to word it slightly differently. Everyone is your mentor, I believe. I feel I can learn from everybody. I've been to, before the pandemic, to teenage hackathons, and I learned so much from these teenagers who didn't know how to code, but they just looked at things very differently. So I really believe that, definitely look up to people. Absolutely, you're completely right, Debbie. See what they're doing and see what, cherry pick the bits that you think will work well for you and so forth. I think people get too hung up on trying to find that one mentor who's going to give them every answer and open all the doors. It doesn't exist. I do see people charging for mentorship, and it's just like, no, I think it needs to be a good relationship, not necessarily focused on money. Again, my opinion.
I just wanted to add one thing because you said something that to me is very important. I think one quality that so far seems to be in common, that I seem to have in common with every single GitHub Star that I've so far seen, and also every single passionate open source maintainer or active person there, is we love to learn. And we love to grow, and you do that on your own. You do not necessarily need one specific person who explains to you how to do that, but you get interested in something. This is what drives us, and this, or at least this is what drives me. I did not have some kind of mentorship ever in my life that I would classify as a mentorship. It was just constantly trying, like a sponge, to gather everything with regards to knowledge.
How did you manage your time in work, self-learning, and helping other devs? I think that's a great question.
So maybe some of you seeing this right now will now have a hearty laugh, but I actually have a school timetable. So I do not always stick to that, but this is more the guideline for me on how to structure my work week. So I have planned into that the time slots per day where I check emails and tickets and GitHub issues and the forums and all that. I have 1 hour of buffer space every day for anything unforeseen that I need to take care of, or stuff like bookkeeping or whatnot.
I only use the electronic version, so I use Notion a lot for planning myself. All my notes there, and I have a common database on Notion that I'm able to, this is a note and this have a time to do. So I need to visualize things.
I use GitHub project boards a lot. At my place in the UK, also, I have like a magnetic whiteboard wall that I can just draw all over the wall and so forth. But I like the digital version sometimes because you're not always at home, especially more digital nomad. So I'm using GitHub project boards more and more. I find that quite useful.
I will be honest and say I think I manage things terribly because I love my job so much that I keep just working and learning. And then sometimes I'm like, I really want to do a live stream. I really want to create a video. I really want to write a blog post. And I'm trying to like get to do it. There's not enough hours in my day to be able to do it. And I have stopped working at weekends. So now I do have a notebook and paper and I do literally like write things down and then tick them off.
I think we need to do what works for us though, right? Everyone's different. And, like I said, things change, right? I used to have a magnetic whiteboard that I used to use a lot. And now I'm going more digital. Awesome. Thank you all so much again. Have a great time. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, folks. Bye-bye.